Ms. Clarke and Mr. Kim, I ask the following two foundational questions of every nominee who comes before any of the committees on which I sit. Two questions. Ms. Clarke, you can answer first, and then Mr. Kim. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
No. Mr. Kim?
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Ms. Clarke, you were a line prosecutor in the Civil Rights Division, and you have extensive experience dealing with hate crimes. Addressing hate crimes has also been a major focus of your work at the Lawyers Committee. And during the pandemic, acts of hate against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have been on the rise. In fact, significantly, close to 4,000 have been reported in the past year, coming into this year. And we've heard and seen the attacks. For example, a 65-year-old Filipino immigrant was walking down a street near Times Square in New York when a man in broad daylight suddenly kicked her in the stomach. As she fell to the ground, he continued to kick her and shouted, "You don't belong here." Several men, including a security guard at the apartment building, simply watched as all this took place. I just want to note that later today, the Senate will be voting on a bill called the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which I hope will receive bipartisan support as one step toward addressing the hate crimes against AAPIs. I'd like to ask you, Ms. Clarke, based on your experience, what do you think should be done to address the continuing incidents of hate crimes against the AAPI community?
Thank you, Senator. I'm deeply concerned about the rise in hate that we are seeing, particularly targeting the Asian American Pacific Islander community in our country. The Justice Department has at its disposal the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act, the Fair Housing Act, and other tools in its arsenal to help stand up and confront this hate. We need better data tracking. New York City is one of the few places that's tracking data impacting the AAPI community, and we know that in March and April of 2020, there were as many anti-Asian hate crimes in that 2-month period as there were in the previous 4 years combined. And we'd benefit from stronger data collection to understand where these issues are most stark so that we can really focus law enforcement resources on ensuring the safety of the AAPI community. But I agree, Senator, that this is a crisis that warrants all of our attention.
Well, part of the COVID-19 hate crimes bill that I mentioned is very much focused on data collection, so we get in a voluntary way from the states and local law enforcement to submit this kind of data online. You would agree that these crimes are underreported, wouldn't you?
Yes, Senator. We need to do a better job at data collection so that we can understand where the problems lie.
Turning to voting rights, since January 1st, 390 voter suppression bills have been introduced across 45 states. And of course, we know what happened in Georgia. This is the legacy of the Supreme Court's Shelby County decision in 2013, which basically gutted a major part of the Voting Rights Act and unleashed a wave of new restrictive voting laws across the country. In fact, right after that decision, some 13 states proceeded to enact voter suppression laws, new ID requirements, you name it. The Supreme Court has before it 2 cases from Arizona, and it is expected that the court's conservative majority will even more narrow the Voting Rights Act by narrowing the effectiveness of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. So basically, if anyone had any questions about the motives behind all these voter suppression laws, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, asked the lawyer from the Arizona Republican Party why, and he said that allowing more people to vote puts Republicans, and I'm quoting, at a competitive disadvantage. You worked in the Civil Rights Division's voting section, and you co-directed the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund's voting rights docket. Why is it so important to have robust voting rights laws at the federal level?
Thank you, Senator. The right to vote is one of the most central rights in our democracy. And the Voting Rights Act exists to ensure that eligible Americans can have voice in our democracy. And the U.S. Department of Justice has long played a central role here. And if confirmed, Senator, you have my commitment that I'll use the tools that the division has in its arsenal to ensure that eligible Americans are able to participate in our voting process.
As we're watching the what I would call disparate policing in our country, the importance of consent decrees by the DOJ is something that I've asked the various nominees, and I hope that you will also look at consent decrees as a way to ensure that there is not this kind of disparate law enforcement by police in our country. I think I'm out of time. I can't tell. I can't read that clock.
Senator, your time is concluded. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Senator
Thought I
Blackburn.
put that thought out there.